Deep within every human psyche lies a fundamental drive, the desperate need to control our environment, our relationships, our future. This isn't just perfectionism or anxiety, it's a primal response rooted in our earliest experiences of helplessness. You feel it in that tight grip on plans that must go perfectly, in relationships that must follow your script, in the constant effort to prevent any possible negative outcome. Freud recognized this compulsion for control as one of our primary defense mechanisms against overwhelming anxiety. Like a child learning to walk, we develop these controlling behaviors to manage our fear of falling. But what begins as a natural developmental stage can crystallize into a rigid pattern, defending against the terror of uncertainty at the cost of spontaneity and joy. The ego, that part of us responsible for negotiating between inner drives and outer reality, becomes particularly invested in control patterns during development. You learned early that certain behaviors seem to make your world more predictable, more manageable. These lessons, encoded in your developing psyche, became the blueprint for how you now attempt to manage life's inherent chaos. Control becomes addictive because it offers temporary relief from anxiety. Each time your controlling behavior appears to prevent a feared outcome, it reinforces the illusion that control equals safety. Like any addiction, it demands increasingly rigid behaviors while delivering diminishing returns. You find yourself needing to control more aspects of life just to maintain a basic sense of security. The cost of this control addiction manifests in ways you might not recognize: chronic tension, difficulty with intimacy, inability to enjoy the present moment. As we explore the origins of this pattern, you'll discover why letting go might be the very key to the security you've been seeking through control. Section 1: Origins of Control. Picture yourself as a helpless infant, entirely dependent on others for survival. This primal state of vulnerability leaves an indelible mark on your psyche. Every delayed response to your cries, every moment of discomfort, creates what Freud called primary anxiety, the deep-seated fear that your needs won't be met. These early experiences shape your relationship with control. Like a scientist conducting experiments, your infant mind begins noticing patterns. Crying louder gets faster responses, certain behaviors bring attention, specific actions lead to predictable outcomes. Thus begins your first attempts to master your environment. They create the foundations for control patterns through their parenting style. A mother who's inconsistently available teaches her child to become hypervigilant, constantly scanning for ways to ensure attention. An overly controlling father demonstrates that love means managing every detail. These early dynamics aren't just memories, they become encoded in your developing ego as survival strategies. You learn to control your environment because, at some point, it felt like the only way to feel safe in an unpredictable world. Your ego defenses crystallize around these early experiences of uncertainty. The child who never knew if emotional support would be available becomes the adult who tries to control every aspect of relationships. The one who faced unpredictable anger develops an obsessive need to manage others' emotions. These aren't conscious choices but sophisticated psychological adaptations. Your controlling behaviors, however frustrating they may be now, originally developed as intelligent solutions to genuine threats to your emotional survival. Anxiety and uncertainty play crucial roles in cementing control patterns. Every time life feels unpredictable, your psyche reverts to these early programming. Like a computer running old software, you automatically activate controlling behaviors when faced with uncertainty. This explains why you might find yourself becoming more controlling precisely when you need to be most flexible. The greater the uncertainty, the stronger the urge to control. It's your ego's automated response to threat. The development of control patterns follows a precise psychological sequence. First comes the experience of vulnerability, then the discovery that certain behaviors seem to create predictability, followed by the reinforcement of these behaviors through temporary relief from anxiety. Each successful attempt at control strengthens the pattern, creating what Freud called secondary gains, additional benefits beyond the original purpose. You might have started controlling things to feel safe, but now it also gives you a sense of competence, superiority, or purpose. As we explore the mechanisms maintaining these patterns, you'll understand why they've become so resistant to change. Section 2. The Mechanisms of Control. Your psyche operates like an intricate fortress, with defense mechanisms serving as its walls and watchtowers. These aren't conscious strategies but automatic responses designed to protect your ego from anxiety. When uncertainty threatens, these defenses activate instantly. Rationalization helps you justify controlling behaviors, projection makes others seem unreliable to validate your need for control, and displacement shifts your anxiety into manageable areas of life. You might not be able to control death, but you can control your schedule down to the minute. They say the ego exists to mediate between internal drives and external reality, but in control patterns, it becomes more like a dictator than a diplomat. Your ego, tasked with maintaining psychological stability, becomes rigid and inflexible. Instead of adapting to reality, it tries to force reality to adapt to its demands. This creates a peculiar form of blindness. The more desperately your ego tries to maintain control, the less it can see how this very control creates the chaos it fears. Like a general fighting yesterday's war, it keeps applying old solutions to new situations. Unconscious motivations drive your controlling behaviors with remarkable force. Beneath the surface desire for perfection or efficiency lies deeper needs, the need to prevent abandonment, to avoid feeling helpless, to prove your worth through competence. These hidden drivers explain why logical arguments against controlling behavior rarely work. You're not just organizing your desk or managing your relationships, you're unconsciously trying to resolve primal fears about survival, worth, and safety. Compulsive patterns reveal the true nature of control addiction. You find yourself checking things repeatedly, planning obsessively, or micromanaging situations even when you know it's counterproductive. These aren't rational choices but ritualistic behaviors designed to manage unbearable anxiety. Like ancient magical rituals meant to control the weather, your controlling behaviors offer an illusion of power over the uncontrollable. The temporary relief they provide keeps you trapped in the cycle, even as part of you recognizes their futility. Your relationship patterns expose how control mechanisms perpetuate themselves. Fear drives you to control. Control creates resistance in others, their resistance intensifies your fear, leading to more controlling behavior. This cycle strains relationships, often creating the very abandonment or rejection you were trying to prevent. Yet instead of questioning the pattern, you might intensify it, believing the problem was insufficient control rather than control itself. As we explore paths toward liberation, you'll discover why surrendering control might actually bring the security you've been seeking through force. Section 3. Liberation through surrender. Step into uncertainty like you're learning to swim. Begin in the shallows of small, manageable situations. Notice how your body tenses when plans change unexpectedly, when others don't follow your script, when life presents the unknown. Instead of immediately activating control mechanisms, pause. Let the anxiety rise without rushing to suppress it. This isn't about becoming passive but about developing a new relationship with uncertainty. Each moment you survive without controlling becomes evidence for your psyche that uncertainty isn't automatically dangerous. They say true power emerges when you stop fighting against life's natural flow. Working with your unconscious means recognizing its wisdom rather than trying to override it with conscious control. Start paying attention to your dreams, your spontaneous impulses, your body's signals. These messages from your unconscious often contain precisely the guidance you need but have been too busy controlling to hear. Let your unconscious be a partner rather than an enemy to be suppressed. This collaboration opens doors to possibilities your controlling mind could never imagine. Your ego requires a fundamental shift, from rigid controller to flexible navigator. This development happens gradually, through repeated experiences of surviving uncertainty. Begin treating your ego like an overzealous bodyguard who needs reassurance rather than a tyrant who must be overthrown. When the urge to control arises, acknowledge the fear beneath it. Talk to your ego, I understand you're trying to keep us safe, but there might be another way. This internal dialogue helps your ego relax its grip without feeling threatened. Building trust in life happens through direct experience, not intellectual understanding. Start collecting evidence that contradicts your fear-based beliefs about control. Notice when things work out despite your lack of control, when spontaneity brings unexpected gifts, when letting go leads to better outcomes than forcing. Keep a journal of these experiences. They become reference points for your psyche, gradually rewiring your relationship with uncertainty. Like building a muscle, trust grows stronger with each experience of surviving, even thriving, in the face of the unknown. The path to authentic power leads through surrender, but not the kind that means giving up. This surrender is active, a conscious choice to engage with life differently. Instead of trying to control outcomes, focus on developing internal resources, resilience, adaptability, emotional intelligence. Real power comes from knowing you can handle whatever arises, not from trying to prevent anything unwanted from arising. This shift transforms your entire experience of life, from a battle to be won to an adventure to be lived. Your journey from control to trust isn't about becoming passive or careless, it's about finding a more mature way of engaging with life's inherent uncertainty. As you practice these principles, you'll discover that what you really wanted wasn't control at all, but the feeling of safety it promised. And paradoxically, that safety comes not from controlling life, but from developing the capacity to flow with it.